I worked with a founder who handed me a Notion database of 247 standard operating procedures. 247. He'd spent 6 months building it, hired a process manager, paid for a consultant, ran a documentation sprint with a team. But the team had stopped using Notion 8 weeks before I arrived. Everything was still ending up on the founder's plate. The SOPs weren't bad. The SOPs were answering the wrong question. There's a school of thought that says the way to scale is to systemize everything, document every process, build the library, train a team to follow it. It's a real strategy. And it works for some businesses. It also produces a very specific kind of stuck, the kind where SOPs are good and the founder is still the bottleneck. That's the founder I get called to help. Here's what I usually find when I open the SOP library. The processes are documented, but the decisions aren't. The team knows how to do the work, but they don't know what to do when the work hits an exception, or who has the authority to call it, or what the founder's preference is on a judgment call. So every exception flows back to the founder on every judgment call, every variation from the standard process. The library says, here's how we do it, but the team needs to know who decides when we don't. A documented process tells your team how to do something. A decision map tells your team who owns the call when something changes. Operations failures often sit in the decision routing rather than the process. The team doesn't know who owns the decision, so the decision routes to the founder by default. You can have a perfect SOP library and still be the bottleneck if your decision map doesn't exist. David Jenyns talks about this in a slightly different way. He says, don't try to document everything. Find your critical client flow. Find the bottleneck inside it, and only document around the bottleneck. I agree with this focus, and I'd push it one step earlier. Before you decide what to document, decide who owns each decision in the flow. Map the flow on one page. Mark every point where a decision happens. Then mark who owns the decision. If every decision marker has the founder's name on it, your bottleneck isn't documentation. It's authority. You can document the process every which way, and the team will still come to you. Brendan Elias ran his business for 2 years as a client of mine. His team had documentation. What his peers usually didn't have, and what Brendan did, was a clear decision map. For every recurring exception, every judgment call, every variation, somebody other than Brendan owned the call. His team owned the decisions all the way through. They made the call, ran with it, and dealt with the consequence. That's why his team rhythm held when Brendan was out for 2 weeks. The decisions still got made by the people who own them. Here's the move I'd run this week. Don't open Notion or write another SOP. Take a sheet of paper or a whiteboard or a single Loom recording and walk through your most important client flow from start to finish. Inquiry through to delivery. Mark every point in the flow where a decision gets made. Pricing exception, scope adjustment, escalation, refund, timeline change, hiring need, vendor selection, anything. Then ask for each decision marker who owns it. If the answer is you, ask the second question. Does it have to be me? If it doesn't have to be you, that decision is the next thing to transfer rather than the next thing to document. Transfer comes before documentation. The SOP gets written for the person who owns a decision once the decision has the name on it. The reason I lead with the map and not the manual is because the map shows you what's actually broken. A team without an SOP can usually figure out the work. A team without a decision map cannot stop routing decisions to the founder. A missing SOP is an afternoon's work. A missing decision map is the structural work underneath the SOPs. That's the work that's underneath the work. What this looks like once you've got it. The team has a one-page map of the client flow. Every decision has a name on it. Whoever's name is on it owns the call, and your name only appears on the decisions that genuinely require you. The team handles exceptions inside their authority. The team escalates the things that genuinely need to escalate on a cadence, not in real time. The founder gets 7 decisions a week, not 70. That's the difference between a business that runs without you and a business that has good SOPs and still runs through you. The SOP library is the artifact. The decision map is the leverage. If you're sitting on a Notion database with 247 procedures and the team is still coming to you, the work you need to do this week isn't another SOP. It's a piece of paper with a flow on it and a name on every decision. Once you have that, the SOPs you actually need become obvious. The ones you've already written that nobody uses also become obvious. A map shows you what to keep, what to write, and what to delete. What's the first decision in your business that has your name on it that shouldn't? See you in the next one.